Today, we're making Mi Thap Cam, or for a lack of a better name, house special noodle soup. This was one of my favorite noodle soups growing up because as an indecisive kid who didn't know exactly what I wanted to eat, this comforting bowl of soup had a little bit of everything that could satisfy all my cravings. Each bowl has thin and chewy egg noodles topped with pork, shrimp, and quail eggs, all swimming in a delicate broth to create a delicious and comforting meal. I'm excited to share my mom's recipe with y'all, so make sure you like, comment, share, and save this video. Alright y'all, remember to wash your hands. Now the first thing we'll do is parboil our pork bones to help reduce some of its porky odor and make sure that our broth stays nice and clean. I'm using 2 pounds of pork neck bones today, but you can use any kind of pork bones you want. And then I also have 2 pounds of pork butt, and I'm gonna parboil both of these for about 5 to 10 minutes. And then I'll drain, rinse, and scrub with cold water to remove any scum attached to the pork. Then make sure you wash your pot too, and then fill it back up with water. Now while the water's coming up to a boil, we'll get the rest of our ingredients for the broth prepped. First, I have half a cup of dried shrimp that I'll rehydrate in some room temperature tap water for about 10 minutes. Then I have a medium daikon, which I'll peel and then just cut up into chunks. And the daikon will add a subtle sweetness to our broth. Now to our pot of water, we'll add in our parboiled pork neck bones and our pork butt. And if you like this recipe and you want to learn how to make more of your favorite Vietnamese and Asian dishes, make sure you subscribe and turn on your notifications to stay up to date on all my latest posts. We'll add in our daikon, a whole yellow onion, and you can choose to char the onion if you want, but for soups like hủ tiếu and Bún Bò Huế, where the broth is already complex, I personally don't think charring the aromatics makes a huge difference in the end results. Then we'll add in our rehydrated shrimp. And this is just a piece of dried squid, and we'll also add it to the pot. We'll bring this up to a boil, skim off any impurities, lower the heat, and we'll let this simmer covered for about an hour. Now, while our broth is simmering, we'll move on to prepping all of our toppings. First, we'll make our tep ma, or fried pork fat. Now, this is partially frozen pork fat, and I like tossing this in the freezer for a couple hours before I cut it to help firm up the fat and make it easier to cut. And we'll just cut these up into 1/4-inch pieces. To a dry pan on medium-low, I'll add our pork fat and let that slowly render, allowing it to essentially fry in its own fat. And this will take anywhere between 10 to 12 minutes. Now at the end, I'll crank up the heat to medium-high and cook for another minute or 2 to get the tep ma to turn a golden brown color. We'll pull the pork fat and place on a plate with a paper towel to absorb some of the excess oil, and we'll season that with a pinch of salt and put that to the side. Now, I am going to reserve some of the lard to saute the ground pork, quail eggs, and shrimp in, and you can either save the rest for later usage or safely discard it. Now to a clean pan on medium-high, we'll add a couple tablespoons of the pork lard, drop in a tablespoon of minced garlic, and saute until fragrant. We'll add in about a pound of ground pork, then using a spatula, break up all that pork so that there are no big clumps. We'll season this with a teaspoon of fish sauce, sugar, MSG, and some fresh ground black pepper. We'll get that all incorporated and cooked through, and then we'll remove the pork from the pan. I'm going to repeat this step with 2 cans of quail eggs that I've drained. So to that same pan, we'll add some pork lard, saute our minced garlic, drop in our quail eggs, and we'll season with all the same things. Now for the quail eggs, since they're already cooked through, this step should only take a couple of minutes. And finally, we have our shrimp. So first we'll de-poop them, and the easiest way to do that is to use a toothpick or skewer and stab it in between the 4th and 5th abdominal segment and lifting that doo-doo straight out of there. Then we'll peel our shrimp, and you can leave the tail portion on for the aesthetics, but for convenience of eating it, I'll just peel the shrimp completely. Now to cook our shrimp, we'll treat it exactly like our ground pork and quail eggs. So we'll saute that with some minced garlic. And we'll season that with fish sauce, sugar, MSG, and black pepper. Now, if you wanted to make your Mi Thap Cam extra special, you could also add some squid, and you would saute the squid exactly the same way as the shrimp. Now the last part of our prep is getting all of our herbs and veggies done. So I have some chrysanthemum, and you can also use Chinese celery here instead. But I'm just cutting the thicker parts of the stem off and then cutting the rest into about 1.5 inch segments. Then I have some garlic chives, which is also known as Chinese chives, and we'll also cut these up into 1.5 inch pieces. Once that's done, we'll move back to our broth. Now, after an hour of simmering, I'm gonna remove the onion and daikon so that it doesn't get a chance to dissolve into the broth, which would produce a cloudier broth. Now, once we've removed that, I'll continue to let this simmer for another hour or so, or until the pork butt is cooked through and tender. We'll pull the pork butt out, wrap it in some plastic wrap to prevent it from drying out, and then I'll stick it in the fridge to cool down to make it easier to slice later. Now to season our broth, I'm gonna add in a 1-inch nub of rock sugar, 3 tablespoons of MSG, and 4 tablespoons of fish sauce. Now with everything, my recommendation is to season to taste, as taste is subjective, but just check out how light and clean that broth looks though. Now once we have all that done, the last thing is to cook our noodles and assemble our bowl. Now I'm using these thin egg noodles today, but you can also use the wide egg noodles, rice noodles, or even a combination of both. These thin egg noodles take just about 30 to 40 seconds to cook in boiling water, and then it's time to plate. We'll add our noodles to a bowl, top that with some of our chrysanthemum, and then we'll pile in all of our favorite toppings, starting with the sliced pork butt. We'll add in some of our sauteed shrimp, quail eggs, ground pork, and our garlic chives. We'll pour over our broth, and then before I forget, we gotta make sure to top it with our fried pork fat and fried shallots. And just like that, you've made Mi Thap Cam at home. As always, the principal recipe is on my blog at feedthepudge.com. And if you've made it this far, let me know in the comment section, what's your go-to meal when you're feeling indecisive? Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy.